This is Debbie, and welcome to another brand new episode of The Offbeat Life, where I speak to inspiring individuals who ditch the norm to live their best life and become location independent. This week, I speak with Ricky Shetty, who is a family travel blogger and the founder of daddyblogger.com, where he writes about parenting from a father's perspective. Ricky left his stable job in Canada when he and his wife realized they wanted to spend more time as a family and to allow their children to be world educated. This decision has led Ricky and his family to over 81 countries in 6 continents, and they've become a lot closer as a family because of this decision. Today, Ricky and his family continue to travel the world and aim to be the first family to ever visit every country in the world. Listen on to find out how Ricky has been able to become a family travel blogger. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this interview with Ricky. Hey Ricky!
Hey, Debbie. Great to be on your show here today.
I'm so excited to have you because you are a daddy blogger and you have created such an amazing brand with that. And you've been traveling with your family all over the world. You've been able to create this life that most people think is impossible, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you lead an offbeat life?
Of course. And I love how you describe my life as offbeat because it is definitely not very conventional. I'm not a typical suburban dad. I'm a digital nomad dad, a DND. And I'll share with you a quick little backstory. So I'm actually from Vancouver, BC, Canada originally. My wife's actually Filipina, so I know you have a Filipino ethnic heritage as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so mabuhay, as they say in the Philippines. So my wife's Filipina, and we have 3 wonderful kids. So we have a 6-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son, and then a 2-year-old son. And a year and a half ago, we made a big decision that we weren't going to live the next 20 years of our life in a suburb, doing the 2-week vacations to Disneyland or Mexico or Hawaii, but we were going to live this life of adventure, following our dreams to travel the world and showing our kids this amazing, beautiful world we live in terms of the languages, the cultures, the people, the food, all the incredible sightseeing, the God-made beauty, the man-made beauty. So we wanted to show our kids this, not from textbooks, not from a school, not from the confines of 4 walls, but by actually taking them into the world. So we made a big decision, and we left Vancouver, BC, Canada on December 6, 2016. We have been nomadic for the last year and a half, and we've traveled through Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Central America, South America, and now we're here in the Philippines, and we're visiting my wife's parents who live here. And it's really good for my kids too, because they're learning about the Filipino ethnic identity. And I work online. I do things like private coaching. I do online courses. I have you mentioned my blog, so I get sponsors through my blog. I'm also a podcaster just like you, and YouTuber, etc. So I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff online while I'm traveling too. So, which is challenging, obviously, and we can get into that, both the blessings and the challenges of working while traveling with kids.
One of the things that people are afraid of once they start having children is that they may not have adventure anymore. But you were able to do that, and you wanted to give your children that experience. And I fully believe that. I work with children as well for my part-time day job. And it's so important to really show children what real world is. And it's so amazing that you're able to take them all over the world and learn firsthand what different cultures are. And that also opens up their mind to so many different things besides just the people that they're with all the time in the same place. So that's a really great way to educate them.
It is. I feel travel is the best possible education. We could have spent thousands of millions of dollars, on the best possible Ivy League private school, or just put them in a regular public school. We could have done homeschooling. But I really feel the best way to learn about the world is to actually show them the world. And they're learning life skills. Of course, they're learning things like reading and writing and arithmetic, but they're learning the life skills like, managing money and connecting with people and socialization and learning languages. And that's what they're going to need for the future. They're not going to need as much of the academic skills as the life skills. So I feel this is the best way. And, we obviously are trying to figure out. And so now that we've started this journey, we definitely don't have regrets. I don't want to look back at my life 20 years from now and say, oh man, I wish we'd taken a plunge. I wish we'd traveled with the kids. And I want my kids to be saying, my mom and dad were great, but I wish we'd traveled more as a family when we were younger, right? I don't want to live life with any regrets. So even though this journey, as you're going to be finding out on this podcast, is difficult and there are a lot of challenges, the blessings and, like the seeing the world through your kids' eyes definitely outweigh any of the struggles that also accompany this journey.
Wow, I want you to be my dad now, Ricky. So you guys,
I can adopt you.
Please, yes, do it. So, Ricky, before you and your wife decided to have this offbeat lifestyle, what were you doing as a day job, as a 9 to 5, before you took this leap?
Yeah, I was already an entrepreneur. So back in Vancouver, I had become an entrepreneur about 5 years ago, and I was working as an event producer. So I would be producing small events, workshops, and then also bigger conferences like multi-day, multi-speaker, like 3-day conferences with a few hundred people. And I was doing that full time, and I was honestly quite discontent because I knew like if I stayed in this location-dependent job, I wouldn't get to travel. I actually handed over that company to a few friends of mine, and they actually still running events under my same branding. So here I am. I've left Vancouver, haven't been back for a year and a half, but the event series are still running even without me. While I was doing events, I was already working on internet marketing, even in Vancouver. I was doing things like coaching. I've had my blog for like 5+ years. So I was already like doing a side hustle back in Vancouver in terms of my regular event production business and then also my internet marketing side hustle. And I just decided to transition more into my passion, which was internet marketing, having that money, the time, the location freedom. I gave up the regular stable work for the unstable. Honestly, there's been a lack of stability with income as well because I'm working with coaching clients. Sometimes I'll have a lot of clients, sometimes less. So there's definitely a roller coaster in terms of the income side of things here as well. And we're particularly focused on cheaper parts of the world. Like we traveled through Latin America, like Central and South America. We've been traveling here in Asia. Southeast Asia is definitely much cheaper than back in my home country of Canada and, in the US. Or in Europe. So we purposely choose cheaper areas to travel in just because we do have a limited budget because we're traveling as a family of 5. And we're definitely not luxury travelers. We're more budget. We'll stay in like hostels. We'll stay in hotels. We'll do Airbnbs. We'll do homestays. We'll stay in digital nomad houses. So definitely cutting costs wherever possible so we can extend our travels for as long as possible.
That is such a smart way of doing it. And for our listeners who are listening to you right now in your story, that is a great hack to be able to do this and do it in a way that is sustainable and you can do this for a long period of time. So choosing the right locations if you want to be a digital nomad or have the freedom to work from anywhere is to really choose the right location to do it.
Yeah, avoid Switzerland, avoid Scandinavia, avoid London, Paris, avoid Tokyo, avoid Singapore. No offense. Of course, those are amazing cities. I've actually been to all those cities as well. But just in terms of the cost, of course, go to the cities, but just realize that if you go to the cities, you're going to be spending more. If you come to a place like Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh or even here in Manila, you're going to be spending a lot less. So London, England versus Manila, Philippines, of course, one's going to be much more expensive in terms of everything than the other, in terms of hotels, in terms of eating out, in terms of transport, and just the day-to-day lifestyle, the day-to-day travel will be much, much, much cheaper in Southeast Asia or Latin America or Africa.
So, Ricky, when you wanted to transition from your business and your 9 to 5 to pursue your dream to travel the world with your family, when did you finally realize that you were ready to leave and to take that step?
I really feel I was not ready. I don't think anyone will be ever ready. There'll never be the perfect time. There'll never be the perfect situations. Like we had 3 young kids, and most people would say that's the worst time to be possibly traveling. We weren't, fully stable with the finances. That's the worst possible time to be traveling. We had just bought a condo actually, and we had the new condo. So you'd think we're going to be staying in this condo for the next few years, right? So I really feel the best time is always now, right? So instead of waiting till the opportune time, like I'm going to wait till I have enough money. I'm going to wait till the kids are older. I'm going to wait until we have better health. I'm going to wait till I retire my wife. I'm going to wait till I retire my parents. Like there are all of these excuses of waiting, but I actually look at the waiting or the excuses as actual excuses. Because if you really want to do something, if you want to start a business, if you want to write a book, if you want to get married, if you want to have kids, you'll find a way. I mean, obviously there might be obstacles in finding a spouse and having kids and stuff like that. But in terms of starting a business, writing a book, whatever dream you've had, like maybe learning a new language, there's excuses, there's excuses. Oh, I'm too busy to write a book. I'm too busy to learn a new language. I'm too busy to start a new business. But you got to make a decision. I really feel it starts with a decision, and you got to put it as a priority. So it's about prioritization in terms of what's most important to you. So when I looked at a life, was owning a bigger house, a more expensive car, keeping up with the Joneses, making more money, hitting 6 or 7 figures, was that really, really important? Or was exploring the world more important? So we're not making 6 figures. We're not making 7 figures. And I don't know if we ever will, and I don't necessarily want to. I would rather live this lifestyle of exploration and adventure and make less money rather than live in my hometown, working like crazy, being stressed out, hardly seeing my wife or kids and making more money. So I choose lifestyle over money any day.
Having those experiences that looking back in your life, 50 years from now, that you really lived it to the fullest. We're never going to be as young as we are right now. So if we keep pushing it off, we'll never do what we want to do because like you said, there's always going to be an excuse to do it. So, and there's always going to be obstacles. We're always going to find different obstacles that are going to come along our way, but it's just a matter of you actually taking those steps. So you are such a great person to look to for this, Ricky, because you have a family. You don't have one kid, you have 3 children and a wife. And if you can do it, a lot of my listeners who are young and single right now, you can do this as well.
Yes, so true. That's true indeed.
Ricky, what is the one thing you wish you knew before becoming a freelancer and becoming a digital nomad?
I wish I knew how bad the Wi-Fi would be in different parts of the world. I had a home office back in Vancouver, and in my home office, I would be like doing interviews. I'd be doing coaching calls. I would be, doing YouTube, social media, and I never had issues. Every now and then I might have a few hiccups and glitches. But man, when we left the confines of the home office, when we left Canada and we started traveling Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and all of a sudden I was doing calls and the calls would start dropping. I would sound like a robot. They couldn't see my video because there'd be glitches, and I would have to cancel calls. I'd have to delay them. I'd have to be very creative and resourceful in terms of finding the internet. That has been so frustrating because my entire business rises and falls based on the internet strength. And, even here in the Philippines, it's an amazing country, but it doesn't have so amazing Wi-Fi, especially outside of Metro Manila, the capital. So when you're up north, like I am right now, luckily here we're doing an audio interview. But even earlier today, I was trying to do video interviews on my podcast. And I'll tell you a quick little story. What I did is in my hotel room, I wasn't able to get onto the video streaming because it was just too weak. What I ended up doing was going near the router, and then there was a fire hydrant in the stairwell, and actually perched my laptop on the fire hydrant, which was right under the router, and then boom, it was the perfect spot. It's kind of like when you picture back in the day when you had the TV or the cables and you're trying to adjust the antenna to make it work. Well, the modern day antenna is Wi-Fi and routers and modems. So you got to figure out so many variables that will make the internet work. Firstly, is the time of day. How many other people on the internet? What's the weather like outside? Where's the other person you're connecting from? And you got to have backups. So I will have, the first is obviously where I am in terms of the Wi-Fi. It could be a hotel or hostel, digital nomad house. It could be a co-working space. So I'll rely on the Wi-Fi there. But then I'll have something called a plug-and-play. A plug-and-play is basically a device where you can plug it in and have internet no matter where you go. And there's also something called a pocket Wi-Fi. So pocket Wi-Fi is a little device you pay in advance, then you put a bulk sum on it, and you can connect to the internet that way. And then my fourth kind of backup will be having my data on my phone. And if all that fails, I can go to a local restaurant or cafe. Something I've found that works really well is internet cafes. So here in the Philippines, I sit in an internet cafe doing business coaching call where clients are paying me, and there's a room full of teenagers playing the latest video game. And it's quite funny. I'm doing my business. I'm looking around. There's all these like 15 to 20-year-old Pinoys, Filipinos, and they're all playing their video games. They're shouting and screaming. And then I actually show my clients, I'm like, hey, take a look at this. Can you guess where I am? And they laugh at it and they're amused by it. They're like, man, you are committed to finding good internet, even if you have to hang out with teenagers playing video games. That's probably been the biggest challenge and the thing I wish I knew. But now, like I told you, there's some solutions and I figured out how to be creative and resourceful. So anyone who's going to be traveling the world and working as well, you might want to consider all those backup options, like getting a local SIM card, getting a pocket Wi-Fi, getting that plug-and-play device, and then looking where the local internet cafe is and the local co-working space.
This is the reason why Ricky is able to do this, because he is absolutely determined. So he found a way around it.
There's so many challenges. I mean, there's the internet challenges, there's the language. When we traveled to Latin America, we knew a lot of friends back in Vancouver because Vancouver is quite multicultural. There'll be Latinos there, there'll be Brazilians, people from Mexico, etc. And all those people in Vancouver all spoke English. They might have a Spanish Latino accent. But when you go to like Brazil, when you go to Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, these places, like most of the people don't know English. So you're going to have so many frustrations. Even in China, China has probably been one of the hardest places I've ever traveled to, because not only is the communication different, but the actual written language is different. Definitely there's so many other frustrations like language and culture. And I say frustrations because I like to kind of show that they're going to be the struggles and difficulties. But actually, I look at those frustrations as actually things to learn. Like I ended up learning Spanish and I ended up learning some Mandarin, right? Because then I could kind of understand, okay, not everyone in the world is going to speak English. There's a country with like 2 billion people who speak Mandarin. I better learn some Mandarin. There's a whole continent with people who are speaking primarily Spanish. And of course, in Brazil, Portuguese, I better learn some Spanish, right? So it really shows you that, when we're living in kind of North America, we're used to English, or if we're living in, Australia or New Zealand, English, right? Most of the world is actually not speaking English as their predominant native mother tongue.
It's funny, one of my friends who I used to travel with, what he used to do is take pictures of things that he usually needs, like the bathroom or food or different types of food that he needs or wants. And then whenever we would go to a country that he didn't speak the language, he'd just show them images of what he wanted. And it worked most of the time. So aside from the language barrier and the internet connection, what has been the biggest setback that you have encountered throughout your whole journey, Ricky, and how do you usually handle them?
One of the other challenges we faced is because we're traveling with kids, one of the things we're wondering is okay, of course we're worried about their health. Are they going to be staying healthy? Are they going to get diseases? We make sure that the vaccines, etc. But we're also worried about safety, security, people mugging us or robbing us. But the thing we weren't 100% sure of that would affect us is the socialization of our kids. So back in Vancouver, of course, they had their common friends. Every birthday party, you would see the same friends coming for their first birthday, second birthday, third birthday, fourth birthday. But when we were on the road, we've been traveling for a year and a half, all of a sudden we had to celebrate all 3 of their birthdays, right? And they don't have the common friends anymore. So we faced the dilemma of, okay, we're having a birthday and we don't want to just do a limited birthday with mommy and daddy and your siblings. So we had to be creative there. So what we've been doing while we're traveling is we're actually volunteering at different orphanages. So we work with a company called SOS, Children's Villages. So they're an international orphanage. They have orphanages pretty much in 100 plus countries around the world. And they allow you to stay there, sometimes just for free in return for volunteering, like teaching English, doing some arts and crafts, connecting and, babysitting the orphans there. They might actually either you do it for free or you have to pay. Paying is just paying for your room and paying for the food that you're being provided, or make a donation to the charity. So when we're staying at these orphanages, of course, the orphanages are full of children. So we try to time our stays so that we can do a kid's birthday party with the orphans. And this is obviously a great blessing for the orphans because they get a huge celebration. We'll do a cake, we'll give them some goodies and some food as well. So we'll provide that to the orphanage. But our kids will really understand, wow, these orphans, they don't even have a mommy and daddy, and they might not even do big birthday celebrations like in McDonald's or Jollibee or like back home, right? So this has been one of our biggest struggles, is like, how do we socialize our kids and how do we school our kids, right? So we've been doing things like world schooling, homeschooling. We even have tried to put them in traditional schooling here in the Philippines, because we're going to be based here until December. So we've been trying out different models in terms of the schooling and educational element. And of course, like, how do we make sure that they have constant, stable friends? Because us adults, we can meet at a hotel, we can meet at a restaurant, and then we can just stay connected to social media. Well, kids, they're not on social media at under 10, right? So they need those friendships. So I would say we haven't fully come up with a solution, especially if we stay nomadic. It's probably better that we're going to like settle in a place like for a year or two, then they can at least have their stable, consistent friendships. But I would say that's probably, I don't know if I want to call it the unsolvable problem, but that will be a difficult problem to solve, because of course friendships take time, energy, effort, consistency. And if you're traveling, you don't have those elements. So that's been a challenge for us as adults, my wife and me, to keep our friendships. But we do it through social media, through Skype, Zoom, Google Hangouts, WhatsApp, etc. But especially for kids who don't have those features that we do.
What about the concerns from your family members and so forth with what you're doing now with this lifestyle?
At the end of the day, I thought the biggest judge of our lifestyle would be others. But actually, I think the biggest judge of my lifestyle is myself. I keep questioning, like, is this the best possible future for my kids? Is this good for their friendships? Is this good for their schooling? Is this good for their education, right? Like, I'm always questioning the decisions we make. And I'll question those decisions even if we stayed in a hometown, even if we're nomadic, even if we decide to be expats somewhere, right? But in terms of our family and our friends, like, most of our friends and family have been super, super supportive. Like, my mom and dad, they'll be the first ones whenever I post pictures of our, their grandkids, our kids, right, on social media, exploring Machu Picchu or exploring, the rice terraces, exploring. We went to an animal safari in South Africa. So when we're doing these amazing adventures, like, my mom and dad are always the first ones to like it. And they're so excited because they probably have a little bit of regret because they didn't take me when I was young traveling as much. They took me on little road trips around British Columbia or to the US, but they didn't do this crazy adventures that we're doing. So they might have, I don't know if it's a regret, but they're like, man, our son, he's done something that we didn't do for him, and he's creating a great future for his kids, right? So they see it's been, it's been positive for my marriage, it's been positive for the kids, it's been positive for the family unit, and of course, like all our friends on social media, they'll always say the same thing. They'll say things like, man, you're so lucky. Oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I hope I could do that one day. Or I'm going to put that on my bucket list. I want to use the word strangle. Almost want to strangle them and say, you can do it. You don't want to hope and wish and dream. You don't want to just put it on your bucket list. If we can do this as a middle class, average family, we're nothing special. We've never won a lottery. We've never got an inheritance. We're just doing it. We're figuring it out. We've run out of cash. We've figured out solutions. We've had our difficulties. We've had fights in the road. Our kids throw tantrums. Our kids have, a sibling rivalry. And those issues are going to be with us no matter where in the world we are. So what I would say to people who are kind of considering this lifestyle too is at least try it, maybe try it for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And if you like it, obviously you can keep going. And if you don't like it, there's always back home. You can always go back home. You can always get a job. There'll be jobs aplenty no matter which city, country, or continent you are in the world. I would say try it out, see what it's like. And, ask people like myself who've done it. And, there are people who are going to be much more real like myself who just shares like transparently and vulnerably what challenges we've had, right? So I think talk to people like that, listen to podcasts such as like yours, Debbie, my podcast, Digital Nomad Mastery, where I interview like digital nomads as well, and equip yourself, but there won't be enough learning you can do rather than learning yourself. The best learning is experiential learning, right? Not listening or watching, but doing, right? So do it and then figure it out as you do it.
We usually are our worst enemy and our worst critic. So again, you're always going to be questioning everything. And if you just go for it, it's going to happen. Everyone can do this. It's just a matter of you actually taking those first steps to do it. You have talked to a lot of people along your travels, a lot of your friends and family, and even strangers. What has been the worst advice that you have ever received?
The worst advice I've ever received is like, like the advice a lot of people give you, especially in entrepreneurship, is focus, 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 focus. You'll hear that over and over and over. And, the acronym FOCUS stands for follow one course until successful. And what I found when I've interviewed all these digital nomads, there've been like about 480 episodes, almost 500 right now. And most digital nomads, they actually don't follow that approach of that one income. They actually follow the approach of the multiple streams of income. Like, don't put in all your eggs in one basket. A lot of them are doing private coaching. They have online courses. They might do affiliate marketing. They might have a blog. They might have a podcast, a YouTube channel. They might do some social media marketing, graphic design, logo design. They might do some e-commerce, things like Amazon, or they might do some app development. They might actually work remotely. So all the digital nomads I talk to, like almost all of them, don't follow that focus model. They follow like the I call it the octopus model. So you're an octopus and you're reaching out with your tentacles, grabbing money, income, providing products and services. And one product might be Kindle books, right? So one tentacle will be selling your Kindle books. One tentacle will be your online courses on Udemy or Thinkific or Kajabi. One tentacle will be doing like private coaching or masterminds or group coaching. One tentacle might be a membership site. One of the tentacle might be e-commerce. One of the tentacle could be a social media marketer or SEO marketer, right? So I think one of the worst advice is like just focus on one thing. I feel the best model for digital nomads is the multiple streams of both active and passive income approach. So thanks for asking me that question, which almost stumped me.
Well, I'm glad I was able to ask you that question, but it didn't stomp you, Ricky. You just kept going.
Almost stumped me.
You work from everywhere, and I'm sure it can get very difficult to stay productive, especially when you're traveling and also having 3 children. Can you share one productivity tip that has worked for you?
One of the things I've had to do is like sometimes I've had to take some Ricky time away from my wife and kids. So because, when you have your wife and you have your kids and like the kids are always screaming and wanting something and like, mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, daddy. And they're like, my kids' names are Rian, Ryan, Renzo. They're like, Ryan hurt me. Ryan stole my toy. Renzo's being bad, right? So that is so frustrating as a dad or as a mom who's trying to be entrepreneurial, right? So I'm actually right now I'm in the midst of my book launch. So I'm doing 7 books about the 7 continents in 7 months. So I've already released my first 3. I released North America, South America, and Europe, and my next 4 are going to be Asia, Australia, Africa, and Antarctica. So for these books, I've actually had to ask my wife. I'm like, honey, I need to get away from this kind of the chaotic home environment we're in here in the Philippines, and just get away for a few days to finish my book. And my wife's been super supportive, and she's let me go stay in a hotel for a few days, and I just stay wherever, like especially when I'm traveling alone. I'm ready to stay in like a dormitory or like a single room for like in the Philippines is like you can get a dormitory like for $5. You can get a single room for like $10 to $15, right? So I just stay in a cheap place and I'm by myself and I'm just sitting in my desk working, getting the book done, doing the research and having that solo Ricky time. And I think it's actually better because when I go back to my wife and kids after a weekend away or like 4 or 5 days away, I'm actually a much better husband. I'm a much better father because then I'm not stressed out. Oh, there's the book deadline. I need to do this and this and this. And my mind isn't on the book or whatever project I'm working on. My mind can be more focused on the quality time with, having date nights with my wife and hanging out with my kids and playing with them, doing puzzles with them, reading to them, right? So I found that's been really good to have the Ricky time. But not only do I have the Ricky time, my wife's name is Anne, she has the Anne time. So she likes hanging with her friends. She likes doing arts and crafts. She likes doing handicraft stuff. So I let her do her stuff and, I'll hang out with the kids. And I'll have the Ricky and kids time, and then Anne will have the wife time, or not like the solo woman time, right? So she can get massages, she can get pedicures, manicures, her hair done, right? So it's really good as parents to allow your spouse to have the freedom to pursue their interests, their passions, and their hobbies. And that's been really good in terms of productivity, kind of allocating in my calendar. Ricky time and then date time, like my wife and me will at least try to do a few dates per month. We try to do weekly, but sometimes it's not as easy to do a weekly date night. So we'll try to do at least a dinner out or a movie out or going out and just chatting as a couple, kind of dating your wife, the concept of dating your husband or dating your wife. So I would say kind of prioritizing your calendar, the solo time, the couple time, and the family time.
How were you able to finance this chosen path that you have, and how do you continue to create income today?
Yeah, so the financial question will be the big question that every digital nomad, every entrepreneur will face. So I followed a four-step method for my own digital nomad journey, and I want to teach it to your listeners and audience here today. So it's the four S's, and it's to save, to sell, to get sponsors, and to get a salary. So the four S's. And this is exactly what we did to finance this trip and to continue to finance our travel so we don't have to stop, broke, and end up back in Vancouver, right? So how do we finance the first part? Definitely, we were saving, we were saving, but also have your travel fund. And a lot of people don't have a travel fund. They have like the day-to-day expenses fund, which is paying off the mortgage or the rent, paying off, whatever the bills are. Then maybe they might have an emergency fund just in case you lose your job or whatever. But most people aren't allocating a certain amount to a travel budget. But I would say start there. Maybe put aside $20 a month for your travel budget, or $50, $100, and say just use a round number of $100, right? Over the course of a year, if you save $100 a month, that's going to be like $1,200. And $1,200, you can buy a flight pretty much anywhere around the world. So that will allow you to obviously pay for the flight. And then if you're considering doing like more of a longer term and you're making decisions around selling, because there's a few things you have to consider. Firstly, if you own a house, you got to consider whether you're going to sell the house, you're going to rent it out in terms of renting out short-term or long-term, right? So we had made a decision that we didn't want to stay in Vancouver for the long term. So we decided we weren't going to come back and live in Vancouver. We would obviously come back to visit and, spend the summers there. But I'm not a big fan of the Pacific Northwest in terms of the raininess and gloominess of the winter. So because of the rain factor, we're like, and also the cost of living is quite expensive in Vancouver, we made a decision to actually sell our home. And that obviously, when you sell your home, you're able to use that lump sum to fund probably anywhere from 6 months to a year plus of travel without actually having to work at all, right? Especially if you have a home and you paid off the mortgage and the price have gone up and you're able to flip it and make decent income, right? So you might make $50,000, $100,000 just off the home sale alone, right? So it's the saving, the selling. The third angle is the sponsorship angle, and we haven't talked about this, and I know you're going to do extended interview, and we'll talk about that more in that segment.
Yeah, make sure to listen to the extended interview with Ricky because he's going to talk about how to get sponsorships for your blogs.
Yes, so I'll do the extended, in-depth elaboration of it in the extended interview, but I'll quickly give you a summary. Basically, sponsorship means that if you have a travel blog or if you're a social media influencer, and I feel that everyone can have a travel blog and, you can build up your audience. It can be quite niche. It could be like solo female travel or couple travel or travel with pets or, LGBT travel or family travel with young kids or, family travel with a big family. So figure out kind of your niche, right? And based on a niche, you can actually start reaching out to tourism boards, travel agencies, travel companies, and getting them to sponsor even flights. Sightseeing attractions, tours. Getting sponsors is obviously going to cut your costs. You got to consider the big cost of travel, which will be your flight and your accommodation. If you can cut off your flights through things like travel hacking, this is another way to actually help cut your costs. It means getting credit cards, which will accumulate points and miles, and you can redeem those points and miles to get cheap flights. A lot of extreme travel hackers, they'll get flights across the Pacific, across the Atlantic for less than $100 US return. Sometimes I see these travel hackers and they're like, I got a flight from New York City to Jerusalem and back for like $34. I'm like, what? Mind blown, right? So I'm not a huge travel hacker. It takes a lot of math and skills and knowing what credit cards to sign up. So you can look at, for example, the Points Guy. There's a great podcast called Extra Pack of Peanuts. There's one called Zero to Travel. So these guys teach travel hacking. So you might want to kind of do more research into that. And the accommodation, obviously getting those sponsored will help as well. So moving on to the last S, which is the salary. So I would suggest not relying on savings alone to fund your trip. If you do, you'll run out of money and you'll end up broke or with very little money and having to go back to a regular job. So with the day and age we live in, obviously you can use the power of the internet to make money. So you got to basically create products and services to sell. One of the easiest services to create is a coaching program. Most of us have a skill set, we have an expertise, we have a knowledge base, and you don't need certification necessarily. Like I've never become certified as a coach, But because I have a lot of experience in the area of like internet marketing or blogging or social media or now family travel and being a digital nomad, I'm actually able to coach people on my area of expertise and experience. So if you have a particular skill set in, for example, stock trading or e-commerce, or maybe you have a skill set in overcoming depression or overcoming a mental disorder. Well, other people are going to be facing those challenges, and you can coach them in that. Maybe you've become an entrepreneur and other people are not entrepreneurs yet. Well, you can coach people on how to be entrepreneurs, right? So I would say definitely maybe starting off as a coach. But I would also say maybe creating things like online courses. That's fairly easy to do. You just sit in front of your laptop, push record, and just record yourself talking. And you can sell those on places like Udemy, udemy.com, there's thinkific.com, there's Kajabi, there's Teachable. So there's a whole bunch of sites where you can create online courses and sell them there. You can do things like social media marketing. You can do graphic design, logo design. So just monetize your skill and make sure it's an internet location independent skill that you can do through internet. Of course, you can do things like ESL teaching as well, or language teaching generally. You can do that both, like, for example, if you're North American, if you're a native speaker from England or any of the English-speaking countries, you can go to places like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China, the Middle East, Latin America, non-English speaking countries, and teach them English in terms of physically in a classroom. But you can also teach English virtually. There's a great company called VIP Kid. They hire native teachers to teach Chinese kids English through the internet. So you can do that, right? And I know a lot of my digital nomad friends that are teaching English to kids in China, and they're traveling the world. So there's a whole bunch of creative ways. The other creative way you can make a salary while traveling is if you're working for a company and you're working in things like IT, you're working in accounting or admin or programming, any kind of job that is more internet-based in terms of working for a company, you can ask if they will allow you to work remotely. Maybe not full-time for the whole year, but maybe they will allow you to work remotely for 2 months of the year, or while you're traveling. And you can test it. You can say to your boss, can I try this out? I'm going to be working. I'm going to go on a vacation anyway for 2 weeks. Can I try working and traveling and seeing if it works? If it doesn't, of course, then you can scrap the idea and come up with the entrepreneurial idea instead. But that's the whole idea of remote work. And, there's obviously a lot more, but those are the steps I would follow. Firstly is to save. Secondly is to sell. Thirdly is to get sponsors. And fourthly is to get a salary or multiple salaries.
If you're not asking, you're not getting it. So if you are in a job right now where you could technically work remotely, you should ask your boss to be able to do that. That could be a really easy step to do it. And I love the 4 S's that you have there, Ricky. So let's fast forward to 50 years from now, and you're looking back at your life. What legacy would you like to leave, and what do you want to be remembered for?
In terms of legacy building, I want to leave the world a better place for my kids. That's the easy answer, right? But in terms of my personal mission or something I want to do as a family, we want to be the first family in human history to travel, to visit and volunteer in every country in the world. So there's actually 193 United Nations member states. And we also want to volunteer, so we don't want to just travel for the sake of vanity and checking off things from our bucket list, but we want to give back and impact the communities we're in. So, of course, volunteerism, things like what we're doing, staying in orphanages and teaching English and just making an impact there. I think that's something we want to do, at least volunteer once in every country we visit. And, in terms of legacy, I want to definitely build strong kids. So let me tell you a little bit of a backstory about myself. But basically, my mom and dad, they actually had a terrible marriage. They ended up divorcing. I ended up becoming quite a broken child. I was voted most shy in high school. Surprise, surprise, now I'm quite sociable and I love speaking, podcasting, being an influencer. But I was actually a shy, broken kid. And I had to do a lot of inner healing. I had to do forgiveness, dealing with my past, all these kind of issues. So my big mission actually is to build strong fathers, marriages, and families, period. Because I really feel if we build strong families, we build strong marriages, we build strong fathers and mothers, we build strong kids. If we build strong kids, they become great adults. And then we don't have all the problems. Like, in the US, there's all this gang violence problem and teenagers going into schools and killing people. People say, okay, gun control is a solution. I actually think the family unit's the solution. That's countercultural, and, people might be like, what? It is the family unit, That kid who goes in and shoots all these kids, he or she probably has some kind of dysfunctionality in terms of the childhood. So my theory on this whole solution to a lot of the world's problems is by building strong families. So my little part in making the world better is to be a better father, a better husband, and raise a strong family myself. That's my legacy.
I love that legacy, and I think every parent should try to achieve that legacy as well, because every child needs a happy home and a home that they can really thrive in. Let's get to some fun questions. Some people like myself, I nerd out on interviewing inspiring people like you and hiking. What about you, Ricky? What do you nerd out on?
I nerd on the latest movies. I love going to movies and just escapism. You know, I love Marvel, I love DC, and I love just going to a movie theater where you're eating some popcorn, you're watching a movie, and you're not worried about the stresses of life. So I'm a big movie junkie.
If you were given a 1-minute ad slot during the Super Bowl that you can't sell with the potential to reach millions, what would you fill it with?
I would talk about my message of building strong fathers, marriages, and families, because I know most of those people watching the Super Bowl will be dads who are similar like Homer Simpson, lying on the couch, rooting for their favorite sports team. I'm going to tell that dad, get out of the couch and play your own Super Bowl. Your Super Bowl doesn't have to be watching the Patriots and the Giants. Your Super Bowl is to raise a strong family, right? So that would be my message. The same message I live now would be the same message I live to the Super Bowl audience, my blog audience, the podcast audience. It's all resonating, my personal mission, my business mission, and the Super Bowl commercial.
And you have the best audience, like you said, to do it. So
yes.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Exactly.
What is the most unusual job that you've ever had, and what was the best thing that you've learned from it?
I was a sandwich artist. I told you earlier that I was a shy, introverted teenager. My first ever job was a paper route, but my second kind of official job was working at Subway as a sandwich artist. Being a sandwich artist at Subway, like just finishing high school, entering university, really opened me up, because if you're listening and watching, if you're a shy kid, or if you're shy yourself, getting a job as a waiter, as a bartender, as an English teacher, doing something like customer service, working in a supermarket or a store, working in a fast food outlet will force you to break out of your shell and become more confident and more sociable. So that's my big tip. Get a job that will force you to be sociable if you're a little bit more of the shy, introverted persuasion.
Having traveled to so many different places, what has been the most life-changing meeting with a person that has ever happened to you?
Man, the life-changing meeting, besides meeting my wife, of course, because we met in Vancouver, I met a guy named John, and I want to give him a shout out. He's actually, a Filipino too. We have this Filipino theme here on the show. But I met him in Santa Monica in California when I was in my early 30s before I got married. I ended up staying with him through a website called couchsurfing.com. And he was so hospitable, so generous, so caring. He opened my eyes to hospitality and kindness, not wanting anything in return. I left him in Santa Monica in California, and I was like, okay, hopefully we'll see you sometime in the future. Well, you know what ended up happening to him? He ended up moving to Cape Town, South Africa for work. And then, I ended up going back to Vancouver, getting married, having kids, and then we ended up doing this travel. And when we decided to travel, we're like, we got to go to South Africa. So when we were going to Cape Town, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, John, remember me back in the day from Santa Monica? And he's like, yeah, Ricky, how you doing, my friend? We haven't talked in so long. He's like, you're coming to Cape Town? Well, you can stay at our place. So this same guy who hosted me as a solo backpacker in Santa Monica hosted us in Cape Town. He gave us his master bedroom for our whole family. We all slept in this king-size bed. He slept in the extra bedroom, and he was such a blessing to us in South Africa. That's just one story. There have been literally dozens and dozens and hundreds of stories of people we met so randomly, people who've helped us and blessed us, and it actually gets me a little bit teary-eyed because so many people have helped us. In the Middle East, there's kind of this stigma Muslims are terrorists and all that. Muslims are actually some of the most friendliest, kindest, caringest people in the entire world. I've been to Syria, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Turkey, and man, oh man, the Muslim people I met there, they welcomed me into their home, they gave me the tea, they gave me the love, and they're so unlike the American Western media portrays them to be like. So shout out to my Muslim brothers and sisters in the Middle East, because I love them to death. They've been so hospitable, so kind.
Being Filipino myself, I know Filipinos are very hospitable, and they will literally give the shirt off off their backs and they're super friendly. So I'm not surprised that John gave you their master bedroom and then he's sleeping in the other bedroom. And I can also relate. I have traveled when I was a photojournalist to the Middle East a lot, and Muslim people are really honestly one of the friendliest and have the kindest hearts that you can ever meet. Traveling is so crucial to experience for yourself, because otherwise you'll just believe everything that you hear, and most of the time it's really not true, so you have to experience it yourself. So Ricky, is there any question that you wish people asked you more of?
Yeah, I definitely think people need to ask more about these kind of like, what are the challenges you face, Ricky? Because I really feel social media is so much of a false reality. No matter where you live in the world, we all put the good stuff on social media, right? We don't put the fact that we're depressed. We don't put the fact that we had a fight with our wife. We don't put the fact that we're struggling financially. We can't pay off our bills. I wish people were just more open about the fact that their vulnerabilities, because I am, as you can tell by this episode, I'm quite vulnerable, quite transparent, willing to just share anything and everything. So when I'm like that, it allows permission to others to be like, man, if Ricky has all these problems when he's traveling, he's married and has kids, like I fight with my wife, So I wish people would not only ask me about the struggles I face, but also be more about their own struggles.
Really, that's how people are able to connect with you, when they see your struggles and you become more human and more relatable that way. So it's so important to do that, because like you said, life is not like social media. It's not perfect. I mean, we want to give you the beautiful pictures because we want to inspire you, but there's so much more underneath those pictures that you do not see. So always remember that. Ricky, what are you working on today that's really exciting to you?
So, of course, I'm working on the book series, the 7 books about the 7 continents in 7 months. I'm also a big advocate of personal branding. So I've had daddyblogger.com for the last 5 years. I've also branded myself at rickyshetty.com. That's a new website that's launching. I'm launching a 12-month coaching program where I take people in terms of the whole journey as an entrepreneur, in terms of personal branding, creating their mission, vision, values, figuring out who their avatar is, figuring out prospecting, and then going into the whole marketing side of things like email marketing, social media marketing, podcasting, YouTube marketing, getting into the media, and then finally the whole monetizing angle, things like creating your own coaching programs, creating online courses, creating Kindle books, doing affiliate marketing, getting sponsors, etc. So I've created a whole 1-year program, and I'm going to be launching that soon as well, because I've been coaching people mostly on like shorter term, like 3 months, 6 months, private one-on-ones, etc. But now I'm developing more like annual programs and more higher ticket items too. So those are some of the projects I'm working on.
That's so exciting. Now, if our listeners want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Of course, daddyblogger.com is what I'm known for. But as I mentioned just now, rickyshetty.com. And if you're interested in being a digital nomad, it's digitalnomadmastery.com.
Oh, thank you so much, Ricky. I really appreciate all of the tips that you gave us. And also make sure to listen to Ricky's extended interview, because he's going to be talking more about how to get sponsors through your blog. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much, Ricky.
And as they say in the Philippines, salamat. Thanks, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Ricky. Make sure to visit theoffbeatlife.com. Again, that's theoffbeatlife.com to find out how to get sponsors for your blog. Hey Offbeat family, I really appreciate you listening to this episode. I would love to hear more from you and what you think of the podcast. Suggestions on guests, topics we can discuss, or maybe you just want to be friends. Why don't we chat some more on Facebook at The OB Life, or send me a message at hello@theoffbeatlife.com. I can't wait to hear from you.